I will first make the more difficult idea that I offered you, and probably the stranger idea. Let's have a variable called count of directions, count of find directions, that will count the number of directions in which the mouse is in a good position to hit the target. For example, if we enter this if, count of find directions should increase by 1. And if I enter this if, it will also increase by 1. And when I have the other two ifs, I will also be able to increase this variable. And in the end, I will be able to check whether this variable have increased to 4. If it's only equal to 4, then I will know that in both 4 directions the mouse is in a good position. It's not outside, for example, up even than the top, upper than even the top of the target. So I will know to increase the score of the player and resurrect the target. With the line that we learned today. One more line will be needed to move the target to the top of the playing field. Actually, I had both of those lines in the other code that resurrects the target when it's too much down. The new thing is that I need to increase the player's score in case the count of directions that are fine is exactly 4. This will not work if I'm not careful enough to put the value of this variable to 0 each time I start the long code, the long chain of 4 ifs that I didn't write it yet. So this will actually work. I'm not sure if perhaps I should write it to you so that you can see that it works and that our score increases. For example, we can also write something to the player like congratulations or nyom nyom, which will be much more tasty because all the vegetables we have are tasty. So yeah, let's test this code. Let's make it working. If I'm really lazy, I will just make those ifs copy it one more time, and I will not change them for the other 2 directions. So I will only check for 2 directions, but twice, and I will be able to think that the number of directions that are fine is 4. In this case, you can see that something stopped, and yeah, my code is not working. Apparently on line 35 I have a big error. Do you see something wrong with line 35? Of course, on this line I am using a variable with a name that I haven't created. Score is not a variable that I created. Do I have some mistake in the way that I've written it? Not at all. I didn't create it at all. Score is a value that should begin at 0 And let's see what's going on now when I try to hit the vegetable. Well, I can put the mouse exactly inside of it, and I can see that it resurrects a lot and my score increases greatly. What happens is that the only two conditions that I check now, but I check all of them twice, is the mouse down enough and is the mouse left enough. So when this happens, for example, when the mouse is at most to the left and to the down, well, the vegetable will resurrect always and again and again. And if I move the mouse to the right, this will not happen every time. You can see that it happens a lot of times. This is an interesting bug, but we know why it happens, so we should not wait anymore and we should just continue fixing it. And yeah, for example, here I'm checking if mouse X is more than target X plus 30. This was meaning if the mouse is left enough, at least from the right part of the target. But if I change X's with Y's, it will now check if the mouse is upper, meaning with smaller Y, at least smaller than the Y of the bottom part of the target. It's 30 pixels down than the top of the target. So we need this to be true also. And I can check what is going on now. You can see that I will hit the mouse now, the target now with the mouse. And you can see that now there aren't any endless resurrections probably, or perhaps I should be really careful how to place my mouse in order to have infinite score. But if I move the mouse in any other direction, I will not have incorrectly increased score. I need to really hit the target, or at least to be exactly to the left from the target. Well, that's because I haven't fixed the last of the conditions. I am still checking twice if mouse Y is bigger than target Y. This means if the mouse is if the mouse is with higher Y, at least higher than the top of the target, I need to check this not only for Y but for X too. I need the mouse to be to the right from at least the left part of the target. What is going to happen now is that I will never be able to have infinite score again. This is kind of sad. I will really need to go and touch the target. So what happened now actually works. By the way, you can see that all those else's that I got are not needed. They print some stupid stuff that I can delete, but this will not make my code a lot shorter. This will not make my code much shorter. There is one more thing that I can change in my code, but still have such a special variable. What if I instead call it not count of find directions, but count of wrong directions, or count of missed directions? This will count if at least one of the directions is missed. It will be a little bit easier. So instead I will need to check if count of missed directions is higher than 0. Of course I will need to make it here to be initially 0, and I should increase it in, well, this is kind of sad because I just deleted all the else's and I just find the code where I just found the code that I need to write in the else's. I need to increase count of missed directions exactly in the else's of those ifs. So this is one task you can do. Change my count of find directions to count of missed directions and check if they're exactly 0, not higher than 0, but exactly 0. So only if count of missed directions is exactly 0, we can think that we've hit the target. All of these ideas are working. But they need new variables and they need a lot of ifs and even one additional if. Well, I will not be able to remove all those ifs. At least I will be able to remove the last if. And instead, I'm going to take all of its code and make it execute only if the last if's condition is true. This means that we will increase the score and resurrect the vegetable only if the mouse is enough to the right from the vegetable, and you can see that again this will let me have infinite score, but now I need to move the mouse to the right. Why I did this? Did I just broke the code that worked? Well, what happens now is that there is only one condition that needs to be true in order for the code giving a new point of score to the player and resurrecting a target to happen. But I want this if to not happen so early. Actually, what my idea was is that this if is checked only if a previous if's condition is true. So what if we take this if with all of the code in its curly brackets and its closing curly bracket tool, and put all of this in a previous if? Well, then in order for this code to execute, will be needed that this condition is true, but it will only be checked if the previous if condition is also true. So this is the idea that I tell you about in the previous video. Try to make nested ifs. Good luck.